Irina, Gloria, Valentina, Julianna. 4 different women, 4 different years, 4 different reasons Tony Soprano tells himself he can't help it. The easy version of this video picks them apart one at a time, says something's wrong with each of them individually, and moves on. But there's a more interesting question sitting right underneath that one. What if the common denominator was never them? Quickly, so we're working from the same facts. Irina is a Russian immigrant, a dancer at the Bada Bing when Tony meets her, his primary mistress for the first 2 seasons, intensely attached to him, on his boat, at his restaurants, treated to a version of luxury she can't access anywhere else in her life. Worth noting, the department store job people associate with her isn't how they met. It's what Tony advises her to pursue when he ends things. Alongside a $75,000 payout, he has Silvio deliver to get her out of his life for good. Gloria sells him a Mercedes. Or rather, she's supposed to be a coincidence. Melfi accidentally double books their therapy appointments, and Tony meets her sitting in the waiting room before he ever meets her at the dealership. Successful, sharp, independent on paper. Valentina used to date Ralph Cifaretto. Tony meets her properly at Hesch's stable, pursues her while he's technically separated from Carmela, right up until she catches her own hair on fire cooking him breakfast. And Julianna is a realtor trying to buy a building from Tony, the old Caputo's poultry site, which she wants for a corporate client planning to turn it into a Jamba Juice. This one's worth being precise about because it's genuinely different from the other 3. They start to sleep together once, and Tony stops it himself, mid-encounter, because undressing in front of her suddenly reminds him of Carmela nursing him back to health after he was shot. Julianna isn't a full affair. She's the one time the pattern gets interrupted before it can finish forming. Here's where this stops being speculation and starts being something the show tells you directly. In one of their sessions, Dr. Melfi says it plainly to Tony. The women in his life, and she includes herself in this, carry shades of his mother. Look at Gloria specifically once you know that line is coming. She has Livia's exact temperament in miniature. Quick to irritation, prone to nihilistic one-liners about how none of it matters anyway. Livia's own philosophy, more or less verbatim, was that it's all a big nothing. Gloria talks the same way. Tony doesn't notice the resemblance until Melfi says it out loud, and once he hears it, he can't unhear it. That's not a coincidence the show buried. That's the show handing you the thesis directly, through the one character whose entire job is to notice patterns Tony can't see in himself. Here's the pattern that actually holds up across all 4 relationships, and it has nothing to do with any individual woman's personality. Every single one of them enters Tony's life through some channel where he already holds the power. Irina is a dancer at a club Tony's crew owns outright when they meet. His leverage over her isn't just financial, it's structural, built into the physical space where they first cross paths. Gloria sells him cars, a professional relationship with an obvious financial incentive for her to keep him happy. Valentina meets him at a stable owned by one of his own associates. Julianna needs him to sign off on a real estate deal worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. None of these are relationships that start on level ground. Every one of them begins with Tony already holding some form of leverage, financial, professional, or social, before either person says a word about romance. That's not incidental to the pattern. That is the pattern. And look at the actual endings, not the version fans remember, but what's on screen. Irina becomes suicidal after Tony breaks it off, and the relationship's true final chapter isn't even about her. It's Tony, years later, savagely beating a political ally named Zellman with a belt simply for the offense of dating her afterward. Gloria's ending is the most violent of all of them directly. When she threatens, in anger, to tell Carmela and Meadow about the affair, Tony strangles her before storming out. He stops himself before he kills her, but only just. She takes her own life sometime after, off-screen, and Melfi, her actual therapist, is the one who has to sit with that news. Valentina's ending is quieter, but no less telling. Tony walks away the moment she's injured and vulnerable, citing devotion to Carmela, as if the fire was the deciding factor rather than a convenient exit he was already looking for. And Julianna, the one relationship that never technically happens, ends the instant Tony's own memory of Carmela's care interrupts him. In every single case, the relationship doesn't end because these women did something disqualifying. It ends because something reminds Tony of the exact thing he was trying to escape from in the first place. And once he's reminded, someone else pays the cost of that realization. So go back to the original question. What did Tony's goomars have in common? Not their nationality. Irina's Russian, Gloria, and Valentina aren't. Not their profession, not their temperament. Valentina genuinely doesn't fit the unstable mold the other 3 arguably do. What they actually have in common is functional, not personal. Each one gets recruited, usually without knowing it, into playing a role that has almost nothing to do with who she actually is. Stand-in mother, stand-in escape hatch, temporary proof that Tony is still capable of being someone other than Carmela's husband or Livia's son. And each relationship ends at the exact moment that substitution stops working. The moment Gloria starts sounding too much like Livia. The moment Julianna starts feeling too much like Carmela. The moment reality catches up to the role Tony assigned in the first place. There is only one woman who actually cracks this code. Svetlana Kirilenko. She sleeps with Tony once in season 4, but instead of taking his money or letting him assert control, she immediately rejects him. She recognizes that depending on Tony Soprano is a death sentence. Svetlana is the exception that proves the entire rule. She survives him specifically because she refuses to rely on his infrastructure. The tragedy isn't that Tony Soprano cheated on his wife 4 separate times with 4 different types of women. It's that he kept reaching for the same fix through different faces, and every time it failed to actually resolve anything in him, somebody else absorbed the cost of that failure.